Perfect. All right, so this is the case study on the Phoenix Social Work Agency. And so the major issue within this case is that the social work agency in Phoenix in the Maricopa County is very underfunded. It's very hard to pay these social workers who are college educated a good wage to keep them around and keep turnover low. So the agency is underfunded. The children need to be taken care of. They suffer from just different circumstances and contexts. All of it is very dire. They all have different needs, and the social workers are absolutely critical in that process. Um, there's no room for error. And so the problem with this is that the stakes are very high based off of the needs of these children who need this help. And so there's definitely these feelings of like desperation. So turnover is very high. The caseworkers that do stick around, they tend to be burdened more and more with more cases, as there aren't enough people to properly balance out the number of cases. And so when we think of path goal theory, we understand that it's all about how the leader makes followers feel competent and capable. And so there's different tools you can use to make your followers feel competent and capable. So you can use authoritarian leadership. That is when you make your leaders understand that you are the leader and they will do what you say they'll do, and you make things happen with very little input from your followers, and they're simply there as like an ends to a means to an end, but very highly structured and not a lot of room for creativity or self-expression. With participative leadership, this is when a leader takes in input from their followers. It's very reciprocal. You can also think of it as like democratic leadership. It's based around like the needs of the followers and how the leader can take in that input and make choices from there. Very different from authoritarian leadership for that reason. There is supportive leadership. This is kind of for circumstances that are boring or monotonous or tedious even. And what is needed in that situation is a leader who can remain positive and motivate followers. When I think of a good supportive leader, I think of like an exercise instructor, somebody who can just be super pumped up and positive and keep motivating their followers, the members of their class, to just keep going, push through, get to the end of the workout. There is directive leadership. This is when a leader steps in and gives very specific, structured instruction. And this is a great form of leadership when somebody is new to a job, for instance, and they need to be told directly how to do something. And so the main idea is that your followers are existing, they are on a path, and they need to get through obstacles and then to the goal. And so your leader is to remove obstacles to the goal as much as possible using these forms of leadership. Whatever is missing, your aim is to fill it. The next theory is the LMX theory. And so the main idea with this one is that the leader to follower relationship is unique. And so there's, the one leader, and then each of their followers. Between the leader and the follower, each one has their own unique relationship. And so as it goes, there's different stages. And so it begins where a follower will work more or generate more trust through giving more than what's expected. And in turn, the leader then gives them more. And so say a follower stays late to work or takes on more responsibility, the leader will then give that follower increased chances for promotions or more attention, more consideration, more feedback, really anything the leader can do to keep that follower happy. And so this relationship, it'll grow through stages where the leader and the follower will kind of keep this reciprocal back and forth relationship growing, where the follower gives a little more, the leader gives a little more, and eventually the conclusion is like something of a friendship. So the leader-follower relationship becomes more egalitarian and more equal, really. The other side of this theory is a worker who doesn't do those things, and so somebody who comes to work and they do exactly what's expected, nothing more. The leader also does exactly what's expected. So nothing extra, nothing fancy, just very by the book. And because of that, there never is this like moving through the stages where this egalitarian friendship forms. And so when we bring it back to the case study, we looked at Alicia. Alicia, she's very authoritarian. She uses directive leadership. We see this in how, she really favors the needs of the agency. And in doing that, she does also favor the needs of the children, right? Because she's very motivated to ensure that the funding, the reimbursement is secured. And so she does that, with her authoritarian leadership. She tells her workers that they will be written up if they don't hit certain quotas. There's no room for error, no space. Feels very tight. And, she feels like she's always present. She's being very directive. And, you go to work, you need to hit that number. You need to make sure that happens. You need to hit that 20 hours of client time. And you need to ensure that you submit your notes at the right time. And so her path-goal relationship, that comes into her being an authoritarian, directive leader. When it comes to the LMX theory with Alicia, what does that relationship look like? And so from what we can tell is that there would not be a good relationship through the lens of the LMX theory. Because if Alicia has a worker who is, going above and beyond, let's say, will Alicia treat that person differently? Will she give them more favors or resources? And it's kind of hard to tell. It was a pretty short paragraph. Can't really tell, but it kind of seems like, with Alicia, she's very by the book, and so maybe not. When we look at Gwendolyn, she favors the needs of followers. And we don't really know if her followers are working to the expectation or not, but if they are, then Gwendolyn's doing awesome. She's very supportive. We see that in how her followers are allowed to go to a coffee shop if it makes sense. She's not as concerned when things go wrong, if there's a reason why they should go wrong. She's very people-focused. If you were a follower of Gwendolyn, you would feel like she cares, and, it does leave room for that relationship to grow. Also helps with reducing turnover, too. We did learn that was a big problem with this case study. And so, of course, Gwendolyn would be able to reduce turnover by increasing worker satisfaction through her support. When it comes to the LMX theory, again, we don't really know how Gwendolyn would treat workers that give a little more, or don't. But Gwendolyn does seem like she's less by the book. Seems like she's more about support, more about enjoying your time at work as much as you can. If things go wrong, don't worry about it. Just do your best. On to the next slide. So in conclusion, which theory is best applied for the circumstance? And it really depends. I feel like there's not enough information to go off of here. If Gwendolyn's followers are hitting the expectations and submitting their notes and securing funding as much as they need to, then her approach would be much more geared towards reducing turnover and ensuring that there's enough workers to support all these children. If they weren't hitting those numbers and they weren't getting funding, the funding is very crucial, at a baseline level, to ensure that the agency can be there in the first place. And so if our workers aren't hitting that reimbursement need, then Gwendolyn's approach does not work. But if they are, most of the time, and everything is still, funded enough, and turnover is being reduced through worker satisfaction, then Gwendolyn's approach is the best. But for Alicia, it sounds like her workers are on top of it, right? She's probably going to have higher turnover, but with the people she does have, they will be hitting those benchmarks, securing funding, and ensuring that everything is there in the first place. Now, right, if, some reimbursement doesn't need to happen to keep the lights on, and Alicia's turnover is super high, meanwhile, Gwendolyn's over here, letting her workers hang out at coffee shops, and everything's still happening, productivity's still high, and turnover's low, then we know that Alicia's approach is not the way to go. It's too harsh, it's too authoritarian. That's everything. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Have a good one.